President Biden dropped out of the presidential race on X. What does that say about the state of social media? This is Mac Voices. Mac Voices is supported by MacVoices Magazine, our free magazine on Flipboard and on the web. Want to cut through all the noise and find out what you can do with your Apple gear? MacVoices Magazine focuses on just that, aggregating the best how-to articles and information. Get it by searching for Mac Voices in the Flipboard app or visiting macvoices.com/magazine. So when I started out, I said this was going to be the Icarus version of Mac Voices because we may fly way too close to the sun. Look at Eric. Eric is just, what's this, Eric?
I don't know. If I could get my cat sitting up here, I'd be all set.
I see you doing Dr. Evil? Yeah, what is that?
I need some Bond music.
Okay, so we don't talk politics here, all right? But the weekend's events, the other events, the big event of the weekend was President Biden announcing he was dropping out of the race. And he did it, of all places, on X. And that's where things got really interesting, I think. And so let's set aside the fact that the president is not running. That's fine. But to make that announcement on X, we talked about in a recent Mac Voices Live, let's see, was it Mastodon, I think? I think it was Mastodon, is trying to appeal more to journalists and news organizations. Does this just sort of and by the way, TikTok, TikTok, there's been a lot made of both candidates using TikTok and how they're using TikTok and how it sometimes flies in the face of what their official positions would be from a legislative standpoint. And yet here we have X as being the place where Biden made this announcement. Is that significant? Does it say something about the fact that X is here to stay, or X is still the big dog when it comes to information distribution?
I think so. I think it gave X a little bit more legitimacy than I think a lot of people in the tech community would like to grant it. I think that I was surprised that he used that platform. Of all the things he could have done, normally he would have put out a press release from the White House. That would be the normal way that this would go, but he went another direction. And I think that the X management is probably patting themselves on the back for getting this, and they didn't do anything to do it. So
maybe he was trying to prove the point that he's not thinking straight. I'm kidding.
Yes, I'm glad you did a disclaimer, Jim.
He did kind of go into the belly of the beast to make this announcement, which was kind of surprising because I still have my X account. I rarely go on it, but my politics are more aligned in that direction of not what's on X. And so it surprised me that it came out on X. And then Elon turned around and used it as a fundraiser. He's going to be donating millions of dollars a month, So it's just weird. But I don't know where else he would have done it. A press release from the White House would have been typically the way it's done, I agree. But I don't know any other social media element that has the kind of visibility that X has right now.
And Marty, that's exactly why I wanted to bring it up here, because because of the Elon situation, we're not going to rehash that, but because of that, X seems to have been deprecated to some degree, and yet it's still, even with all those challenges, it still seems to be the place where a lot of news gets broken. Because I don't know if it's because of it's viewed as more legitimate. I don't know if it's because it reaches more people. I don't know if it's because of the news organizations and the journalists that are still there. But at the end of the day, it's not a social media company that you can ignore, no matter what your politics, good or bad.
Weren't there two parts of this? He announced that he was not running, and then there was a second announcement that he was endorsing Harris.
Yeah.
And I thought the second part was the part that was on Twitter.
No, it's the other way around. Yeah, I think he used. I can't sit here and think what it was that he did.
Looking at Slack, and you didn't put it. Did you put a link to any of this?
No, because I couldn't find anything that really laid it out, Jim, without doing that Icarus thing. So I neglected to put anything in because I did not want to, see it as a pro-Democrat, pro-Republican, anti-Democrat, anti-Republican thing. It's more the fact that this was the choice that was made that I found really, really interesting.
And I thought the endorsement of Harris was kind of a reaction to the initial. Why he didn't put that out in the first one?
You can't.
Space limitations,
No, you can't. You can't mix it. One was an official announcement. The other one was a political announcement. And it has to be two separate things. You can't put them in the same thing. It's against the law.
Okay, so that's the election laws. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
And they were really closely spaced, right?
It was like 30 minutes, I think, or 20 or something.
Yeah, so I don't think, it wasn't it was obviously all planned.
Oh yeah.
Well, that's. Tell me if this is what I saw or heard or have read about, that apparently Biden told his advisors that he was doing it, and then at like 1:45 or something, and then 1:46 he tweeted or X'd or whatever you call it now. That there was almost no chance for anybody to react to him doing it. So
I thought somebody here was saying that he endorsed Harris in reaction to something, which I don't think is the case.
It was planned.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, it just struck me with all the discussions we've had about social medias and how different ones are trying different things. And, nobody was happy with Twitter or X. And yet here we are.
Well, it took Twitter many, many years to build up that collection of reporters. And there really isn't another spot for them all to go. They've tried a bunch of different things, but they sort of kept Twitter as a X as a backup. So
I think it's primary, not a backup.
I
think it's primary, not a backup.
No, I mean when they tried to go somewhere else. They didn't get rid of their X account. They kept them. And they would try somewhere else. And then a few people or one group, or the same with the sciences. You get one field would go to another spot. But if you needed to talk to somebody in another field, they weren't there. So it would bounce through X and then get rebroadcast back. Same thing in Mastodon. There are a lot of cases where something hits X, gets rebroadcast to whatever the group is in Mastodon. So a bunch of Mastodon people maybe don't go to X, but they still get things once removed from X because there isn't a replacement yet.
Well, you say it's primary, but is there any other instance of the Biden White House, at least, breaking news on Twitter? I don't think I've ever heard of that before. Maybe also this is sort of not a White House thing. This is more a Joe Biden, personal. I think this is a one-off.
This is a political announcement, is what you're saying. It wasn't a White House announcement.
The first part of it is personal, really, right? Joe Biden, am not running.
I don't know.
I mean obviously it's got, it's a political earthquake, but it's not really a White House, it's not the usual White House type of announcement. I guess we'll have to see. A more, interesting thing is, there's stories in the last 24 hours that people on X are being prevented from following Kamala Harris.
I haven't seen that.
I hadn't seen that either. So
now, it wouldn't surprise me if part of this was some irritation being expressed to some of the other news organizations based on comments over the last month or last few weeks, and that rather than doing a normal, release to the press corps, this was a way of getting it out, having everybody get the same thing, and kind of lightly thumbing a nose in a couple of the larger media companies.
I think that's quite likely. Look what in the New York Times unanimously telling him to quit. Why should he give them the story?
Marty, you just pasted, something into our private chat that I will repaste into the YouTube chat. But this would lead me, if I read it kind of quickly, but it looks like this is saying that they did it to avoid leaks to the press.
Yeah.
Which is a really interesting thing. That are we to that point that any White House leaks so much that when they really want to do something directly, they have to turn to social media to do it directly?
Well, you could tell he was getting mad with interviewers asking him the same question over and over again and really pushing him on it. So I think this was a way to get it out. And even up to that day, there were stories the day before that he was insistent to his staff, and his staff were going on morning news shows and saying, he's not quitting, get used to it. So I think it came as a big surprise. And I think there was a little bit of throwing some smoke up before the announcement just to make sure that he had control of the message.
I don't know. Again, this is one of those I feel like that we're going to hear about later. And this Axios link, again, that I just threw in may be one of the first ones to talk about, why.
So, there will be a book.
Hey?
At least one.
Yeah, there'll be a series of volumes for each hour leading up to the decision.
I know we're being a little flip, but I would almost expect that.
Yeah.
How about an Apple TV Plus series? That would be great.
There you go. There you go. Produced for the Apple Vision Pro.
I think the leak thing is interesting. That does, by doing it that way, that enabled them to keep it to a very, small number of people. And clearly, there were lots of White House staff people that were talking to press people on the side. So I'm sure that was a big consideration.
Yeah, and I heard today he is going to do an announcement in prime time tomorrow night, which would be Wednesday, that he's going to speak to the nation about it for whatever purpose, so he can kind of clean up whatever he needs to clean up.
Yeah, I doubt that X will be part of the discussion, but it just we saw back. You go the whole way back to the Obama campaign and how effectively they use social media. You see how Trump has gone directly to his base and not necessarily through the media, although there are certain factions of the media that support both parties. But this feels like there's a trend on both sides that when we want to get an unfiltered message out, we send it out. Then the media picks it up and spins it whichever way they're going to spin it. But the politicians, the White House, whomever, they can put it out exactly the way they want. And it's borderline immutable at that point. So it's
it also,
in a different
as
world.
This article points out, at the beginning, there was some questioning, did that account Twitter account get hacked. By doing it that way, I think when the announcement first came out, we're like, is this real? Did Biden just do this on Twitter? And I think it was sort of a combination of, well, they didn't deny it, so that's how it became accepted.
Yeah. And just looking at this article, Linda Yaccarino, X's CEO, said X is where history happens.
Yeah, well, of course you'd say that.
Oh, yeah. You would too if it was on Panorama.
I would. No question.
On that note, one more politically sort of oriented story, sort of not, but Forum for Media has shown that iPhone Cellabrite can't unlock iPhones with some of the more current system software. And I thought I had an article, but apparently I don't, that showed that Cellebrite worked with the FBI to unlock the Trump assassin's phone, and it took him about 40 minutes, and it was an Android.
Right.
So that just validates all of our comments about about Android security. I think it was just last week or the week before where we talked about Microsoft is banning Android phones for their employees in China.
Yeah.
So all this stuff starts to fit together, and we bring it up here, folks, so you can start to see the patterns that we see, and then you can draw your own conclusions about how safe or secure you want to be or need to be.
I wonder how many Android users listen to this show. I'm
Maybe
sure
they
it's not
should.
zero, but
maybe they should.
Oh, yeah, of course they should. Everyone should listen to this show.
Thank you, Jim.
Aliens on planet Zargon should listen to this show.
You picked your cue up right on time. That's great. Okay, so we're going to bounce around because I knew we'd take some time on this, and it deserved it. But this is a story that Google URL Shortener links will no longer be available. So if you have been a Google URL link shortener user, I think I got that right, in the past, and you're depending on those to push users to this content or that content, you're about to have a rude awakening.
Yeah, I'm pretty much screwed.
Are you serious, Marty?
I'm serious. I've used shorteners. The same thing happened with TinyURL for a while. I'm using Bitly. It's a paid account, so I'm hoping they will not disappear. But Google, like all Google things, come into the room and disappear sometime later.
Now, apparently this does not take effect until August 25th, 2025. So there is some time. But just going back and trying to redo all those is
to even think about where I've used them or where users have used them. We don't keep a run in our head. So yeah.
I mean, Google stopped doing the goo.gl for at least a couple of years, so we knew it was coming. It's just now it's coming to the time you need to start migrating over if you've kept these shorteners, the shortener link going.
Yeah,
David, do you know how that Google is going to discontinue a product?
They started.
They announced it.
Yeah, it's sad too because Brian just put in the in our chat room killedbygoogle.com where you can go to see all the things that have been killed by Google, and there were some things I depended on. There were some great services that apparently Google got what it wanted out of them, and then just threw them on the trash heap.
Have I showed you?
Shame on me.
Yeah.
Fooled me twice, won't get fooled again.
Yeah. Marty?
Yeah, I have some Google glasses I can sell you if you're interested in them.
Of course you do.
I have to ask, do they still function at all?
Nope.
Nope.
I pull them out every once in a while to see if I can get it to set up. But the app, they discontinued the app. It's out of the App Store. It was all run through the Google Glass app. So yeah, the answer is no.
Frustrating. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with MacVoices Magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices, or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you Mac Voices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.